Here we go. Welcome back to an episode of Tea Time at Physics. Today we have Rob Dixon with us today,
How you doing?
exercise physiologist for Human Powered Health, a place that I've been visiting quite frequently, getting a lot of my tests done, like my DEXA, my running gait analysis, force plates. They have a ton of stuff. When I was in there, it felt like I was in like a candy shop. And Rob was showing me around. He was like, man, I got this machine, and these are the stuff that we do. But what I think is special about what you guys do is that after you do those tests and exams, you guys have someone like you or your colleagues who are all exercise physiologists, and y'all seem like you guys all love this shit. And you will go and take the results and talk to the clients and say, hey, look, these are your numbers, and this is what it means. And this is some of the advice or things that you might want to consider based on these numbers to make some improvements in your health, which I think is lovely because you can go to any place and get like a DEXA scan or get a gait analysis, but you're like, what am I going to do with all these numbers? You know what I mean? So I think that's excellent. So Rob, so tell me, for what I missed, tell the audience a little bit more about Human Powered Health, like how y'all started, like and what y'all do.
Yeah, so Human Powered Health, we work in the Performance Lab department. Overall, Human Powered Health is a big umbrella. We have like a pro cycling team, we have Human Go, we have Team Genius that works with like the team aspects with coaches and all that. Where we come to play is that Performance Lab. So what we do is a multitude of different tests ranging from anaerobic to aerobic testing, and then also concluding with that data review that you were talking about. So like you said, we think the most important thing is not only coming in to do the assessments, but understanding what you're doing. If we give you a bunch of numbers and you go home with it, there's nothing to do to help you progress from it. So at least let's take the time to sit down, have you understand what's going on, give you some recommendations, and that way you could take it home and then you have the freedom to take the recommendations, move forward, or not take them.
Right. So I talked to you earlier, like, so what is your background? Like, how do you find yourself in human powered health? I know you're exercise physiologist. Like, what kind of sports did you play, and what kind of sports did you coach? And give us an audience a little bit of background about that.
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I started off at American International College actually as a PT student. Funny thing
Okay,
about
yeah.
it. I kind of got up to about my junior year, right before I transitioned to grad school, and kind of realized that maybe this wasn't the actual facet I wanted to be in anymore. So that being said, I switched over to public health for another year and a half, and then exercise science, I always say, kind of found me. The director from the program one day came up to me. I was playing Division I rugby at the school at the time, and she asked me if I ever thought about coaching. She noticed that my teammates would gravitate towards me. I could lead people through lifts. People would listen to when I spoke. And I said, nah, never thought about that. I'm used to getting coached, not being the one coaching. So she kind of put the ball in my court, challenged me to do it, said, you have the science background, why don't you give it a try? I did that. That led into me getting my master's in exercise science. That then led me to going to coach at the school I was at, then going to a Division I school down in Texas, Texas Southern, coaching down there. Coached about 4 to 5 different teams, ranging from women's sports to men's sports. Came home, did some personal training. And once I got home and did personal training, I realized there was something that I was missing. There was an itch I wasn't really scratching. So decided to switch over to clinical research, try to give that a shot. So use some of my exercise background, but also kind of itch that nerd side where I want to see numbers and understand the body more on the inside more than just what I can see on the outside. Long story short, all that culminated into me taking the shot and applying to human powered health, which to me seemed like a nice mix of clinical, but then also sports performance. And that's how I ended up here at Human Powered Health.
So I know you guys have a bunch of different tests. Now, which one is your favorite test to walk people through?
Let's see. When I first started, I probably would say it would have been force plates, testing people's jumping metrics, breaking metrics, those type of things.
But for those who don't know, force plates is when there's a plate on the ground and you would do some movements on it, whether it's jump, whether it's squat. It tells you what kind of forces are you putting into the ground from the right versus the left, and seeing those discrepancies.
Yes.
Did I have that right?
Yep,
Perfect, good.
exactly. Going a little bit more depth, that downward force is what we call braking force, and that upward force, you jumping, would be your propulsive force. And exactly like you said, we can kind of see the amount of force you're able to put into the plate versus how much force you get jumping. Then we can see asymmetries, time to take off, a lot of different metrics from that, and build out some recommendations on whether you need to get a little bit stronger, and specifically in eccentric loading, or you need to get a little bit more explosive. those type of things.
Right. So essentially, what he's saying is, hey, look, your left side is doing a lot more work than your right side.
Yep.
Maybe in your training, you might want to buy some more work on this side that's lacking
Yes.
based on these exams. So I like that because sometimes, as athletes, we're so good at compensating. We can jump pretty high, pretty well
Yep.
by having asymmetrical loading from the left to the right, and we'll never notice because we're still getting the job done. So having a test like that is super valuable to see things that we don't normally even feel in our body.
Absolutely. And more than that, that also helps you with injury prevention. So if we do a jump and we see there's a 10% difference between the left and the right side, you may not feel it because you've been training and that's just how your body moves. But what we see is, all right, we may not have an injury yet, but we could lead towards an injury. Let's try to work on this and lower that asymmetry. Let's get it below 10% between the two.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely love that. So that was your initially, the fourth place is kind of your thing, but
Right.
overall, over time, you said you shifted. You started to like a
did.
different test better.
Yeah, so
What you feeling?
over time, just kind of learning more about endurance athletes and more about endurance testing, I started loving the lactate test. So reason being is you get to, in my opinion, get to see a lot of different metrics besides lactate accumulation.
Right. So for those who don't know, because people watching this right now, they're like, "Man, what are you talking about?"
My
So
bad.
let's explain to them
Yep.
what is a lactate test. What is a lactate to begin with?
So blood lactate is pretty much the accumulation of like a waste product from a cycle that creates energy that your body uses to do those type of exercises or performance testing. So when we're looking at lactate, we're looking at the accumulation of this kind of, I guess in a lack of a better term, waste product that we see from that your muscles give off. How we test that is we do finger pricks. So we do like a quick little finger prick, we test the blood, and from that we can see the concentration.
Okay. So how's it work? Like why would someone want to get that tested anyways?
Yeah, so reason why people get that tested could be for multiple reasons, but a lot of it comes down to your muscular endurance and how long you can kind of push yourself before you can kind of say, hey, my muscles are saying I'm pooped and I can no longer do any exercise. So it's a good metric for muscular endurance as well as muscular efficiency.
Okay, let's say, for example, I started running. So, I came, I got the running analysis done. Evan's been gassing me up, saying I'm a beast.
Yep.
Like my running mechanic is on point. Like
Natural
I'm
born
built
runner.
exactly. So I
Yeah.
started running, but I be getting gassed. And like, how would that help me?
Yeah. So what we can see from that, if you were to come in and do a lactate test, you want to run, what we can see is, all right, from say this speed to this speed, your body's not really noticing the fact you're doing exercise. You're below what's called lactate threshold 1.
Okay, so let's say I'm going at a speed from like 0.5 to 5. Let's say, okay, my lactate's saying you're not doing too much. Okay.
So with that being said, we would then continue to push you up at higher intensities. So now what we're looking for is, all right, do we see that lactate start to accumulate above your first threshold, which would be like above 1.5 or so.
Okay.
So that's when we can say, hey, our body's starting to recognize we're doing some type of exercise or some type of intensity where we're working a little bit harder than we were at resting.
Like we're building some lactate in our system
Exactly.
at a certain speed, at a certain level of effort.
Or intensity. Right.
Okay, gotcha.
And then as the test continues, that intensity will then increase, and then by essence, your lactate would increase. We'll then look for like a second inflection point, or your lactate threshold 2, which a lot of people might know of. And then once we see that, we may push you a little bit further just to see how your body handles lactate above that accumulation point.
Like, would you be able to feel that? Like, if I'm hitting my first like lactate threshold, like would I feel that in my body? Like, would I be like, oh man, that's a burn coming?
Not really. You probably would feel it more towards your lactate threshold 2. That's when you would really start feeling that burn sensation.
Right. So
when
the
you
first
feel it.
threshold where it signifies I'm doing something, like I might not feel different, but on the second threshold where
most
I'm like,
likely feel
okay,
it.
now you're like, okay, I'm feeling the burn.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Nice. And then is there another threshold after that?
So no, we really look for the LT1 and LT2. After
Okay.
LT2 is really just seeing how well your body handles that lactate. Are you able to clear the lactate out of your blood as quickly as you're producing it? And as well, we look at that kind of mind-body connection. How hard do you feel like you're actually working at that higher lactate levels?
Right. So let's say I'm at lactate 2, like I'm killing it right now, and I'm feeling like I'm putting in like a 9 out of 10 effort. Like I'm going all out almost, right?
Yep.
So
Wait, 9 out of like 10 out of 10 out of 10, or what's our scale? What are we working with?
Let's go like 0 to 10.
0 to
Just
10?
keep it
Okay.
simple, right? So let's say I'm working at like what I perceive as a 9 out of 10. Like I'm going all in. And then on your lactate scale, you're seeing that whether what would you see? Like you might see someone who's matching up that 9 out of 10, or you might see someone lower.
Honestly, both. It comes
Okay.
down to kind of the type of athlete you are, the type of individual you are, the type of training you're doing. So if you're more of like a anaerobic athlete or someone who does more like powerful movements like a power lifter or CrossFit, you may get up to that LT2 and be like, I feel fine. I feel like I'm a 4 out of 5 or something like that, just because your body's used to that through your training. Whereas if you're an endurance athlete, you're used to working at lower intensities. You get up to like your LT2 and you might be 11 out of 10, just because with that training, your body isn't used to that type of sensation and or handling that lactate.
Okay. So now that I have this data, like what do I do with this data?
Yeah, so if you were coming to the lab, what we would do next is we would do a data review after we're done with all of your assessments. So that's when myself or one of my other colleagues would then look at your data, create your curve, and kind of interpret it right there. And then we would bring you into the room and we would sit down and we would talk to you about it, kind of explain to you, hey, this is your first inflection point, this is your second inflection point. Based off of what we're seeing, depending on how the curve looks, your training may be, hey, we just need you to go low and slow for like a good 6 to 8 weeks. Let's start building up your aerobic base. Let's get your body used to working at lower intensities. Or it could be, hey, we're crushing it down here, but I'm noticing we don't have a huge working space before we get to our LT2. Let's work on expanding that LT2 and pushing that upper part of our curve to the right a little bit more.
Right.
That way, at higher intensities, we can work for a little bit longer, and or the sensation of working at those higher levels isn't as drastic as it was before.
Right. So, for example, I think based on what you just said, let's say an endurance athlete come in and you're doing this lactate threshold test, right? And based on the recommendation, you can be like, look, I kind of want you to work at a higher intensity for a short amount of time so you can build this base. So that way, when you get into the race, you can actually complete it at a shorter amount of time, right? That might be like a scenario. Or you might have like a CrossFit, a high rocks person coming in and they're like going all out. It's like, hey, look, I think you're gonna do much better if you train at a lower intensity, almost like boring type things to build the capacity.
Yep.
But that's gonna help you be able to have a little more in your gas tank to complete the race at a faster time. Is that what you're kind of saying?
In essence, yes. So
Okay.
for that endurance athlete, especially like your marathoners and things like that, you could think of it as, for most marathoners, you probably think of running the race in like 3 different races in one. You're running the first half, the middle, and then the last part where you may kick. So say you want to kick at the end. That's when your lactate is going to be high. That's when you need to work on having a higher threshold so you have that in the tank at the end. We most likely know that low and steady state you're good, but what are you going to do at the end when you want to catch everybody? For your anaerobic athlete, like your high rocks and or your CrossFit athletes, exactly to your point, if we can push out our curve to the right before our body even starts accumulating lactate, we can train for longer. We know you can handle the high intensities, but let's work on that base first and let's push that out before you even get to your LT2.
Right. I think that's interesting because I think most people would look at this and be like, what do you mean? I got to train less to do better?
So it wouldn't be
It's almost,
Go ahead.
yeah, but it almost feels like it's too good to be true. Like I got to train less hard in order for me to do better, you know?
Yeah, so it's funny. A lot of the conversations we do have, or at least on my aspect, is slow down. And yes, it's boring, and yes, it's hard to go slow. But the work you don't feel doesn't mean you're not still putting in work. And you can see that with your testing. So yeah, there's some days you got to do the boring groundwork to build your base up. But then because you built up your base, you can go have fun at those higher intensities later on.
Right, right. So in essence, what we're doing is just work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
love that. Cool. I want to talk about a couple tests other tests because we have partnered up with Human Powered Health, and all of our clients receives a myriad of tests at a discounted rate.
Yep.
And we have chose a couple of different ones that I think will be beneficial for our population. The DEXA. All right. So for those who don't know, DEXA's kind of been popular, but what is the DEXA and how's that different from like an InBody scan or something like that?
Right. So a DEXA scan is the highest gold standard level of looking at body composition as well as bone mineral health. So really the number one thing you look for there is your bone mineral density health. The other benefit of that is body composition. So when we're looking at that, you're doing that with x-rays. So you're doing that with dual imagery. And then what we can see from that is when we're looking at body composition down to visceral versus subcutaneous fat, we can look at your segmental, so looking at your lean versus your body fat percentage. And then we can see your overall lean muscle mass as well as your overall body fat percentage. And then when we're looking at bone mineral density, we can see a holistic view, and then we also do central scans. So that's like looking at your lower back, that L1 to L4, and as well as your dual hip, so looking at that upper third of the femur and that ball and socket joint. And how it differs for InBody is InBody uses a different method of looking at that. It uses electrical impedance, which is highly variable based off of what you eat, what you drink, the time of day, and your repeatability of the test. So gold standard, I would always say go do the DEXA scan if you can. If you want to do trends, if you want to just check in from time to time, definitely the InBody would suffice for that as well too.
I love, because I did the DEXA scan, and I love that it tells you, your femoral neck on the left side, that bone mineral density versus the right side. And if there's a difference between the two, you're like, okay, you're definitely loading that right side more because it's just denser versus the left side. Now when you go to the gym, now you need to be focusing on some left hip strength type exercises. For me, the biggest difference was my left arm, my right arm. It's just a huge difference between the right and the left. So what's funny, because now when I go to the gym, if I don't have a lot of time, if I'm hitting upper body, like I hit a couple curls, I hit a couple like triceps, just on my left side. I just leave the right side alone. And this is something I've noticed. Like, I notice when I do things on my left, I'm just way weaker on that left side. And when I'm weaker on that left side and you're strong on the right, guess what? That's going to throw off your posture too.
Yes.
Because you're going to be heavier on that side, and everything's going to shift. So I can't stress enough how important it is to kind of have this data to lead you into, like, how should we go into the rehab? How should we go into the training?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so love the DEXA. And one thing that was funny, because I thought I had to be naked for the DEXA. I came in, I was like, Rob, I'm gonna take my shirt off, and he goes like, no, you don't have to. I was like, confused, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But yeah, you're closed.
Yes.
You're closed. It's like an MRI machine. You're closed, and you go through it, just in case that's sort of like
a barrier
for some people, because it can be. Wasn't for me. I was ready.
Yeah. So I will say you don't have to come in naked or anything like that. You can come fully clothed. The only restrictions we have is metal objects. So when you came in, that's the first thing I asked you, hey, you got any zippers? Do you have any like metal jewelry or anything like that that's removable? That's really the biggest thing. Otherwise, you can come in sweats, nice hoodie, whatever the case is, as long as you feel comfortable.
Right. No, that was a great test. The next test I really enjoyed was the running analysis test.
Yep. The gait analysis.
Yeah, only because I scored well. That was the reason why I love it, man. So you just have someone run on the treadmill. They have all these scanners, and they can see where you are with your alignment. They can see your ground reaction force, how well you're putting force to the ground, and how quickly you come out of it.
Yep.
And you can look at it from the left to the right, and as intensity increases, does that change your stride length? Because you can be like a good runner maybe for like the first like small speed, but once speed picks up, things start falling apart. And I think it's very important for runners to understand like where that breaking point is.
Absolutely. So that's honestly one of the best things about the gait analysis, besides looking at vertical force, vertical displacement, your ground contact time. You can also do a shoe comparison as well too. So we can do, say, 2 shoes at a certain speed, and from that we can say, all right, this shoe is more efficient at this speed, or this shoe is better at shock absorption and those type of things. So we've had racers come in and test 2 different shoes at certain speeds, and from that they made a determination, all right, this is my training shoe, this is my race shoe, this is how I'm going to use it. Or I know for X amount of distance I can race in this comfortably. For this distance I have to race in this shoe. And then besides that, the other great thing about the gait analysis is, besides what we can get from the technology, you have us physiologists standing there watching. So we can see your actual movements in live. We can give you, hey, try on bringing your hips through. Think about squeezing that glutes at the top. Or hey, bring your chest up. Let's run a little bit taller. Or hey, you're not getting enough knee drive. Think about bringing those knees through and tell me how it feels. And then we can see live data and be like, okay, that improved your contact time, but a little bit of your vertical displacement went down. Let's talk about that. Or okay, we've corrected 3 out of 4 things. Maybe with more time of doing this, you'll see that last thing correct. So I don't know, it's cool.
No, I love it, because when I was there, I was talking to Evan. Evan was just like, hey, everything looks great. Maybe just lean your body a little bit more forward. And I was like,
Absolutely.
oh yeah, never thought about that because I was running, I was being tall, I
Yep.
was feeling good. But he said, yeah, but at some point you can want some of that momentum to carry you through, so you don't have to work as hard.
Yep.
And I go, that makes perfect sense. Makes
Absolutely.
perfect sense to do that.
It's all about how you strike the ground. You don't want to reach too far in front of you, and it's almost like a kickstand where you're stopping yourself. But you also want a little bit of forward lean where you're pushing that ground at an angle, and it's propelling you forward.
Yeah, yeah. And what was cool is that you guys came in and you get to see some of the stuff that we do with
Yep.
the foot mechanics. And
Absolutely.
tell people a little bit about that because
Yeah.
we do it so much. So it'd be just cool to have someone like their experience and what they think about
Yeah,
all
so
that stuff.
first time I came in, you took us through the sensor we had in the back. So we kind of looked at where my pressure was, kind of where I distribute it. Realized I'm a big supinator. I put a lot of my pressure on the outside of my foot. But then what was super cool is we went into the room and we actually did some gross movements. So we did some rotational movements. We tried to touch our toes and those type of things. And simply from like rotational movement, you saw I had a discrepancy, I think going to to my left? I think we're going to my left. And you simply was like, all right, let's try this. You put a couple blocks underneath my foot. You're like, give it another try. And then I think we had one under my heel, one under my big toe. And you gave me the idea of spreading my foot and really trying to push down into those blocks. And from that alone, I think I gained at least another 3 or 4 degrees of rotation from just that alone.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important to understand that like everything we do comes from ground up. If your feet are wrong, then most likely something's going to compensate. That's going to lead to an asymmetry, and you're probably going to have a lack of mobility and/or lead to an injury, or you're not reaching your potential. So
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think looking at foot mechanics is really a shortcut to creating change. It's like instead of trying to, get some more mobility from my hips, get some more mobility from my feet, from my rib cage or whatever. If we can get the feet in a better starting position, like everything else have a better chance to do that rotation on its own. So for runners especially, that's why we're partnered up in this. It's like, hey, look, you have someone going through a gait analysis. They want to change the gait, but it's not very. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have someone think about their running form because once you start thinking so much, like you're awkward now. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you're overthinking it, you're overdoing it. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So for us, it's like, hey, if we can get your foot to contact the ground in a nice way, all that force reverberates up in a different way, and that ultimately changes your running form. And for us, it's like, hey, can we change your running form without actually having you think about the way you run? And that's why it's so powerful to work with foot mechanics. Yeah, and I'd love to see how this unfolds for some of the athletes that you guys get, and just like, hey, they come over here, we'll do some foot mechanics with them. They go back over there to do another
their
test
gait, yep.
and see the difference in how well they can run.
Yeah, honestly, I'm really interested in that too. Just seeing how little changes happen, or even giving the recommendation of different type of shoes, and then you come over here, CJ. We have the shoes with the nice foot mechanic, like working on that, and then see how that can change their gait as well too.
Yeah.
Should be cool.
Yeah, the shoes is a whole different animal too, because I love what you said about having different shoes for different styles of runs that you're doing, and I believe in that. Like if you're gonna be doing like super long distance, you might want to have a little extra cushion. Like I'm a fan of like low support shoes,
Got you.
but I'm running like maybe a 5K. You know what I mean? Like my muscles, my tendons, they can handle that, but I'm pushing myself to like that 20. I probably never will. That 20 miles like
You
run.
and I both.
Yeah, you know what I mean? If I'm pushing myself to that 20-mile run, I'm probably going to want some more supportive shoes because at some point I want the shoes to do the work of my muscles
Right.
because it's probably going to
It's
fail.
probably going to help you out in the long run, and it's going to help you compete better, last longer.
Right.
And then that way you can actually score better and hopefully get a higher place in that race.
Yeah, and if I'm going on a medium-sized run, I probably want to shoot somewhere in the middle where I'm getting a little bit of support, but not so much. But I would definitely say if we're doing like lighter runs, we're working on building better foot mechanics, the less support is going to be better because you want to build that support from the inside out and not rely on an external thing like a sneaker.
Exactly.
What's your take on that?
Building from the outside in and not worrying about like sneakers, braces, and those type of things.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. I think you become dependent upon those type of things, and that in essence, in my opinion and from what I've seen, creates a deficit and/or an area where you can become more injured. Your body always looks for the most efficient way to do things and the things where it doesn't use energy. So if I'm slapping a brace on my knee and my ankle and everything, guess what's going to happen? your mind is not going to keep those muscles stabilized and keep them active because I have a sleeve on and I have an ankle brace on. It's doing the job that my mind should be doing, my body should be doing.
Yeah, I love that. That's exactly the point I'm trying to give for everyone that comes through the doors. People ask us about orthotics. It's like, what do you think about these orthotics? I'm like, it is good until we need you to do better. Like if you're in a lot of pain and we need to protect that joint,
Absolutely.
yeah, let's
do that.
stop some joints from moving so it can heal. But once it's healed, well, guess what? We need that joint to go back to its full range of motion again. And if you keep that orthotics on, it's never going to find a way to find that range of motion again. So a lot of our clients who walk through the door with orthotics, as we can continue to work together, we don't say this is our goal, but our goal is trying to get them off of them.
Absolutely.
And we bridge that conversation when they come in and they say, you know what, I thought I was like feeling a little uncomfortable, and we're like, try taking them off.
See how it feels.
See how that feel. And then they go through a whole week, 2 weeks, and they're like, man, I felt good not having orthotics.
Don't need it.
And I pay $1,000 for those.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but the foot that you had 6 months ago and the foot that you have now, two completely different foot. Right? So when they're two completely different foot, you're going to want two different things that you want to put on it. So it's not uncommon for someone to walk in with one pair of sneakers they love, and then they have to switch to a different pair of sneakers because it just no longer serves them anymore.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So do you guys do much with the sneakers inside Human Powered Health?
We personally don't do much with the sneakers besides doing the analysis through the gait analysis, so looking at kind of the running economy, shock absorption, and those type of things. But we do work with our partner Marathon Sports, where we do have a lot of our people go and talk with them, and since they're more experts in that, they do spend some time over there as well. We have like a little notebook, we write down kind of what we saw in our gait analysis. We have them take it down there and speak with those experts that can hopefully point them in the right direction for the right shoes and what they need.
Love it, love it.
Yeah.
Cool, man. You guys have a lot of tests. So I want to think about the other one that I had people signed up for. So we got the DEXA, we have the gait analysis. I think the force plate is part of it. We touched on that already in a bit. Man, I think there was one more. Man, maybe it was.
Did you have a running assessment? Did you have a
Yeah, the running assessments in there. Oh, we don't have VO2, but yeah, tell me a little bit more to VO2 because that's something I've been exploring a little bit more because I'm seeing some people who's going to high rocks and things like that. So tell people what is VO2, why does it matter, and what kind of recommendations you can make based on knowing what someone's VO2 max is.
Got you. So VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can uptake and actually utilize with your working muscles. So pretty much the efficiency of your cardiovascular system. Why it's important? It's
mine's trash.
Honestly, I don't even want to see what mine is right now.
We should do it together.
You want to? I'm down. I'm down. We might die. We might die, but it's
we'll find a day. We'll find a day where we don't have clients the rest of the afternoon. I'm just gonna come in, get gas.
Let's do it. We're gonna throw you in the mask.
Yeah, we'll get a meal afterwards.
For a second. All right, that sounds good. But it's a really important test for longevity. It's one of those longevity metrics.
Okay, so not just like athletes, like people older.
Everybody. I would say this is good for geriatrics, good for your athlete, good for your sedentary person.
Oh, that's good to know because I was just thinking this for athletes. Okay.
No. So let me backtrack. All of our testing that we do at Human Powered Health is for everyone. So as long as you're of age appropriate for that test, you physically can do it and are mentally able to do it as well too, we will gladly see you, help you to where you get to. You don't have to be a professional athlete or aspiring athlete. You can be Joe, Bill, Bob, or Jen from down the street, and you just want to see, hey, my VO2's here. What does that mean? It's open for everybody. So that's the one most important thing I do want to get across, that we don't have boundaries, we don't have limitations. If this is something you want to do, our job is to help you get there. But yeah, going back to the VO2, it's a good longevity metric. It's a good sign of your cardiovascular health. And at the end of the day, I think we all need to breathe to be able to live. So if we can see how well that system's working and hopefully get a butt like ahead of it, we can then make those corrections to keep you breathing longer, moving longer, and living longer.
Okay, so let's say someone's coming in for a VO2 max. What does it look like?
Yeah. So if you're coming in for a VO2 max, just a VO2, we usually start you off with some type of warm-up. We don't want you coming in to do a maximum exertion test completely cold. So we may put you through, say, a dynamic warm-up, some mini band activation, foam rolling, as well as give you the opportunity to say, hey, get on the treadmill, just walk a little bit. Let's get your body moving. Once we're done with that, depending on who you are, we may already have a protocol that fits you, like a bulky or a Bruce for our more sedentary or non-athletic population, and or if you're
Yeah,
competing.
what are those tests for the
Yeah.
people who don't know?
So bulky and a Bruce are two protocols that also elicit maximum exertion so we can see your VO2. Your bulky is for your more, I guess, frail population, people who can't handle, say, a high intensity run or high incline. So it's a slow walk at a very low incline that gradually goes up.
Okay, so it's a walk on a treadmill on incline. Okay,
Yep.
got it.
And then a Bruce
Bruce, yep.
would be a mix of a steep incline with also a jog.
Okay, steep incline to jog. Okay,
Yep.
all right. I feel like I
Yep.
can handle that.
Yeah, easy. Most people can. And then for our other people, other athletes and things like that, say you do have paces that you do run at. Say you know your 5K or 10K pace. You can have a conversation with the physiologist and we can then talk about a pace that we would feel comfortable putting you at for our test. Once we figure out kind of a good pace for you, our standard protocol would be having you run at that pace and then increasing your incline 1% every minute after the first 2 minutes. So the first 2 minutes is like a warm-up where you're just running at 1%. After that, we go up 1% each time. But that being said, our protocols can be adjusted. Say you have a coach who wants you to do a certain protocol to elicit a VO2. As long as we talk about it and we kind of see that it's okay and it's safe, we can always make those adjustments to our protocols that fit kind of your training style and what you need.
Okay, so let's say I'm coming in here, I'm doing the treadmill one with the incline. Like, when would you stop?
So with that, honestly, we're gonna push you until you can't. We're gonna make sure you stay safe.
Right.
Where if we start seeing a breakdown in, say, like running form or you're getting close to the back of the treadmill, of course we're gonna stop that.
Right, that's the end of the test.
That'll be the end of the test for safety reasons.
Right,
But
right.
if you're doing well, you're right where we want you on the treadmill, we're gonna encourage you to keep pushing yourself until you tell us you can't anymore.
Right, like my
Like if
cardio.
yeah, exactly. If you get to the point where you can no longer keep up with the speed of the treadmill or the incline, and you say I'm done, then that's what we take it for.
All
And
right.
we'll look at that.
Okay, so it's all right. So I'm running, but like I need to stop this treadmill because I'm gonna start sliding.
Yep.
That's the end of the test.
For the most part.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. And then after that, I get some numbers that shows my VO2 max. So what did I do with these numbers? Like,
Yeah, so from what we would get from our test is when we get your VO2 max, we get your max heart rate as well, so we can get your heart rate zones. And then say you do hit what is called an anaerobic threshold, kind of where your body switches to using more so like carbohydrates versus fats.
Right.
We can also talk about that and kind of where you hit that in your VO2, because that also is a good indicator of kind of your training and what your training may look like as well too.
right. So give me an example of that.
Yeah, so say you came in, you did your VO2. We got a VO2 of 56.2, which is pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay,
So
alright.
say you
Appreciate
got
it.
that, of course, got you. Say your max heart rate was 181. From that, we would then, and then your AT or your anaerobic threshold was, say, around a 90 to 92. So what we would do is sit down and we would talk to you, hey, your anaerobic threshold is in a pretty good spot there between that 90 and 92. So we know that you're able to utilize your fats for a long period of time and then switch over to carbs at higher intensities, kind of an appropriate range. But then you also still have more in your tank where we know, hey, you still have enough room, about 8, 9%, where you can still kick it up another notch. And that's kind of that last kick in a race. Now, with your overall VO2 being so high, we can say, okay, you've done the groundwork, you've done the low and slow, so let's see where else there might be a discrepancy. For you, that may be just us telling you, maintain that zone 2 work you've been doing, but if you want to become more efficient, let's structure our training where we're keeping our high intensity days as well too. So we're doing interval or threshold training. Intervals like zone 3, threshold would be like zone 4, zone 5 for heart rate zones.
Right. So when Rob's talking about zones are just where your heart rate lies.
Yep.
So the higher the zone, the higher the heart rate is, the harder the work it is.
Yep.
Okay. So
Exactly.
based on the VO2 max, you make some recommendations like, hey, you know what? We actually need you to work at a lower zone, right?
Yep.
Because of these reasons. And that's cool because, you know, people always think, hey, harder the better, right? go hard, I'm gonna go hard. But then the numbers show you're good at going hard. You suck at going slow.
You'd be surprised how many times I've told people just to slow down. Where exactly what you said. We all know how to go sprint and go run as fast as we can, but none of us know how to slow down and go for long periods of time. So there's a lot of times where I'm having conversations with people where I'm like, dude, you clearly you know how to go out there and bust your behind. But hey, let's slow it down a little bit and let's keep building your tank. Let's keep making your tank bigger. Let's keep working those foundational things.
Yeah. Because it's like, hey, you're great with the sprint, but you know you got like 400, right? You run the 400, right? This is like this is not gonna get you there.
Exactly.
Like you're gonna crash around like the 100 mark.
Exactly.
So this is the recommendation for you to go fast and long at the same time.
Right.
So where I see this would be beneficial is like people going to high rocks, people going to like CrossFit, right? They might be super strong, but they don't have that endurance to lead them all the way down to the end of the game.
Well, I would say even with High Rocks or CrossFit, I would probably lean more towards a lactate test for them.
Okay, the lactate test. Do you think the VO2 max and the lactate test together that would be good to know?
I think so. Because then
Okay.
you would be able to train two different systems. You would be able to work on your muscular endurance and muscular efficiency, but then also work on your cardiovascular system as well.
All right, man. So we've been talking behind the scenes that we're gonna do a high rocks competition together, right?
Yes, we have been talking about
Yeah.
it. Yep.
All right, we'll put this on camera right now.
Oh, so
We're
we
gonna
gotta
make
stay
it.
true to it
Oh
now.
yeah,
Oh, okay, got it.
yeah.
I got you.
I mean, I'm thinking like the fall. You know what I mean?
Fall next year, fall this year.
Oh, fall. Maybe fall this year, bro.
Okay,
Is it fast? Is it fast? It might be fast.
Well, it might be fast. We have to see what the date is.
Yeah,
but
we'll
it
see
might
the
be a little
date.
fast, and then we have to really get on training. Like,
Yeah, I don't know how long you think we should train before we go enter something like this.
yeah, I would.
I
Say,
mean, I'm not trying to place like I'm not trying to be on a podium.
Yep.
If I am, I'm a beast. But like, that's not the
You
goal.
got it.
That's not the goal.
So I would say that would come down to that would be us doing that VO2 max test, maybe do lactate. Let's see where we are first. Because based off of our own biomarkers, you may be in a better position than me where you can get ready for that race before I'm ready for it. So I think it comes down to a little bit of that. But in essence, we usually always tell people if you're going to start some new training, we got to do at least 6 to 8 weeks first, and then we can progress up to something that's a little bit harder.
Right. So 6 to 8 weeks is just like a trial run to see how well you do, and then from there we understand. All right, if you want to compete in this race, you probably want to give yourself like a 4 months training period.
Yep.
Structured in this way for you to get there. So we can be like more precise and scientific about it versus just kind of like training with no aim.
Right. So, and really, you need about 4 to 6 months to really start seeing those noticeable changes. So,
All right. So at least 4 to 6 months. So we're in March.
March.
So we're looking at the fall, winter.
Yeah, we're looking fall, winter right now. About 6 months of serious training. We should definitely see some adaptations, some changes.
All right, man. We're gonna get the team together.
Oh yeah, listen, I already got the team in my head.
All right.
You're one, I'm one. I got some other people. I ain't tell them they're going to be part of the team yet.
Yeah, but they will be.
Yep.
They will be. Yep. I love it, and I think having these tests, just being structured with it, I think we should film some content around it. You know what I mean? Like we take these tests, we understand where we are with these numbers, we start training, and then we see these tests again, and then
See the improvements on it.
right. I think that'd be a cool case study.
Absolutely, I'm with it.
Yeah, love it, man. Dude, I always have so much fun when I'm talking to you because this stuff like lights me up. This is like that nerd shit that I love doing and talking about. I just didn't know people are out there doing it, So it's good to know that you guys exist and can't wait for this partnership to continue to blossom.
Absolutely, and just like I'll tell you and tell everyone, if you have any goals, you guys want some assistance, help, guidance on it in any way, shape, or form, please come check us out. We're out here in Wellesley. We would love for you guys to come in.
Absolutely, and we'll put all the links in the show notes so everyone knows exactly how to get to them. And before you go, definitely reach out to us first, because especially if you're a client, because we gonna hook it up too.
Absolutely, word.
All right, thank you.
No problem.